Hello everyone, welcome to another repair video. In this video today I want to show you how to properly clean a Xbox One X console. So the customer that sent this in is basically, he just likes to take care of his things, and he sent it in just for a general service, reapply thermal paste and whatever, and make sure that it's all running smoothly. So I don't think this console is actually overheating yet, but he likes to take care of his things, and he said he just wants it cleaning but he doesn't trust himself to do it, and he said he wants it to just make sure that it's running nice and smoothly, which I couldn't agree more. It's always good to clean out your consoles, but many of the time I come across consoles where there's been some sort of damage because someone's tried to clean it out themselves. So I'm going to show you today how to properly clean it, and we're going to start off by taking the two screws out of the back. So there's one, and these are Torx T9 screws. There's the second one, and I'm going to try and get through this as quick as I can because the customer's coming back in 30 minutes for this. So once we've taken those two screws out the back, slide it forward and just lift up on the one side, and it'll come apart very nicely indeed. So once that's done, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to take out all of these screws. We're going to want to disconnect this, take this panel off, and then take out the motherboard from inside. So we'll start by just removing all of the top screws, what we can see. And these four screws here are for the hard drive. There we go. So that's the hard drive removed. We've got a screw here which is for the disk drive. We've got another screw here which I'm not 100% sure. I think this is something on the fan. I'm not 100% sure where that screw goes. All of these flat screws here. So this one, this one, this one, this one, and there's one more somewhere that I've missed. But all of those flat screws there hold the plastics in place, the bottom of the plastics. These two screws holding the bind button and the front USB, these hold the CPU bracket in, and then the rest of the screws are just peripherals. So I think this console has been cleaned before. There was no warranty sticker on this. There's usually a warranty sticker on the black screw at the back. Okay, so let's take out the chassis screws now. So there's one chassis screw. You'll notice that they are a lot longer than the other screws. There's another. There's another. And another. And another. Okay, now let's take out the motherboard clamp, or let's remove the screws that are screwing into the clamp. So there's no point in taking the rest of these screws out once we've took the plastics off. We might as well take them all out now, because everything will be coming out of this console. Okay, this screw here seems to be slipping. So, yep, that's been off before. There we go. And finally, from the top here, what we want to do is remove this bind button. Now this is the part where you need to be extra careful. Reason being is because I see time and time again where this port actually gets ripped off the board if you're not careful in removing this. And I do see it very, very often. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a pair of tweezers and just flick up on this connector. So I'll pry it slightly first, loosen it, and then it'll just pop off like that. And as you can see, absolutely no damage whatsoever to that port because we was careful. Okay, so next what we want to do is we need to remove this ribbon cable here from this little Daughterboard front panel IO board. So we're just going to flick up with a pair of tweezers on that connector. There we go. And then we'll just use the tweezers just to remove that ribbon from that board. Okay, now we can remove the 3 screws that are holding this board in. So these gold screws are quite long, and these gold screws only go in a couple of places, so you can't really get them mixed up. So we've got 3 gold screws here, and then we've got a couple on the Wi-Fi board on the side, or the Bluetooth board on the side. So we know it's a Wi-Fi board, it's not a Bluetooth board. So you can't really get them mixed up. So there's those screws out. And then we just unclip this. There's a little connector on the back. There we go. And that's removed. Same for the Wi-Fi panel. So you'll see there's 2 silver screws here. These are roughly the same size as the gold screws. Not quite as big. Not quite as small, but close. And they go into the side ones. And then we've got 1 black screw, which is the same screw as the CPU mount. Okay, same for this one. This one will just pop out, just like so. And connectors on the back there, 6 pins on that. Okay, so now that's done, we're ready to remove this from the plastics. So we're going to flip it upside down and just lift off this top panel. Just like so. And you'll see there's a fair bit of dust there on that fan. So we're going to clean that off, or around where the fan is meant to go rather. So we're going to clean that off first of all. And just clean all around. What's that? Okay, that's weird. There's some sort of plastic there. Not meant to be there. Okay, so we'll pop that to one side, and then we're going to flip this. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to remove these screws first. I always leave these and forget about them. So we've got one screw here, which screws into the fan, and then we've got another screw just here, which is a flat but small screw. It's roughly the same size as the ones that hold the bind button in, but not quite. So if you take a look at the bind button compared to this one, you'll see they are not quite the same. They do look very similar. They're both flat on the top, and they do look very similar, but the one from here has a fatter thread on it. So let's pop those there, and then we can go ahead and remove this cover. Might be a little bit tight like this one is. There we go. Okay, so that's that. And now we can start removing the removable parts from this. So we're going to start with the power supply. And the fan is connected to the power supply, so we'll unplug that and just lift that off as one unit like so. So you'll see there's a fair bit of dust there, not a lot, but there's a fair bit. So we'll pop that to one side for now. Next we can remove the disk drive by unclipping the SATA cable and the power connector. Next we can remove the hard drive. Again, SATA connector and power connector. And then we can remove the actual motherboard itself. So the motherboard itself needs a little bit of gentle persuasion, but it will come out. We'll pop the chassis to one side, and now all that's left to do is just to clean everything, put it all back together, reapply thermal paste, and the job will be done. So it really doesn't take long at all. If you're not doing this on a video, you're probably talking 20 minutes, half an hour maybe. If you're experienced, you might do it a fair bit quicker. Right, so the proper way to remove this clamp is to take a flat screwdriver, and what we're going to do is we're going to find the area with the least amount of traces. So what I mean by traces is these lines here. Each one of these is a circuit from one point on the board to another, and it's just a piece of copper, but if we stab through this then it's going to cause issues. So we look for the one with the least amount of traces, and that is either going to be this one or this one. I always go for this one on the Xbox One X because there's no real traces there. There's a couple, but nothing that's going to cause significant damage if we do happen to slip with the screwdriver. So what I like to do with these, I usually wear a glove with these, but because I don't know where my gloves are, I think I've put them into the wash basket. I'll pop my finger there on a cloth, and I'll just basically put my finger up against the clamp, pop the screwdriver into the little gap here, and just pry it away. And the reason I put my finger there is because if I was to slip with the screwdriver, I'm going to hit my finger rather than the board. A cut will always heal, whereas the board, if you stab through that, you're going to cause some problems. So that's the way I like to do that. Then we go for the next one with the least amount of traces, which is going to be this one, and we do the same again. Finger in the way and just pry up. Next least amount of traces is going to be, well, these two are actually equal, but there's a gap on this one where we can pop the screwdriver in, and they do get easier as you go round. It does get easier, which is why I do these in a set order. You'll see that came off really easy, and then the last one just comes off on its own. So that's that simple to get the heatsink off, and if you're careful then you won't do any damage. Okay, so we'll lift that off there, and you'll see that there's a lot of thermal pads here. These need to be here to clean the VRMs and other components like the memory chips and things like that on the board. But we do need to remove this dust from around here. So we'll just do that with our fingers because there's not too much. If there was excessive dust, then we'd use something like a paintbrush, but this isn't too bad. We'll just blow it away, get rid of it, make sure that we don't knock any of these thermal pads off, or thermal paste rather. This is like a thicker version of normal thermal paste, and it just helps to transfer heat to the heatsink from the VRMs and things. Okay, so now we need to get rid of the old thermal paste. So to do that, we're going to use some isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab. So I'll dip my cotton swab in some isopropyl alcohol, and I'll just work my way around the APU area, which is this big green chip here. It's the graphics chip and the CPU in one. And we'll just give this a scrub, get rid of all of that old thermal paste, and you'll see that it's pretty hard, and that means that it's due for a change. So a bit like the oil in your car, when it comes to it where it starts to get all gloopy and thick, then it's time for a change. And the same applies with this. This is essentially the oil change of a car, of the console world. So that's why we do this. So once we've got the majority off, we can use something a little bit thicker, such as a paintbrush or a toothbrush or something like that. And again, soak that in isopropyl and just give it a little scrub. You don't need to get these perfect, just get the majority of it off. Okay, and then we'll just give it a little wipe down with the cloth. And then finally, give it another scrub with a cotton swab, just to get rid of any residue. Again, like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just get the majority off and you'll be fine. Okay, so that's that one done. Next, let's get the old paste off the heatsink. So let's move the motherboard out of the way for a second. And we're just going to give this a scrub with a dry cotton swab. Blow all of that away. And then just give it a wipe with the cloth. There we go. And now we're ready for the new paste. So I'm going to take some thermal paste. Doesn't really matter which thermal paste you use. Any will do just fine. And I'm just going to apply a little bit onto the actual chip itself. And then I'm going to take a cotton swab and I'm going to spread it around so as it covers it evenly. Nice even coating there. And it doesn't need to be perfect again. Once the heatsink is clamped back down, it's going to even all of that out. But before we put the heatsink on, we're going to want to get rid of this dust. So we're just going to give this a scrub, get rid of all of that old dust. Again for this side, just go into the grooves, make sure it's all nice and clean. And you can also use compressed air. But I wouldn't recommend using compressed air if you haven't opened the console up, and the reason for that is because all you're going to do is just blow dust all over the console and it's just going to end up regrouping. So that's nice and clean. Again, like I said, it does not have to be perfect. All you have to do is get rid of those clumps that are blocking it. And now we're ready for this to start going back together. So I'm going to take the heatsink and I'm going to position it. So when I'm positioning this, I want this row of paste here to cover these VRMs. So I'll get that into position. And then flip the board around. And we're going to pop the heatsink back on. So we're just going to pop one side on, and then we're just going to press down on all four corners, and this might take a fair bit of pressure to do. There we go. We're not bending the board, all we're doing is pushing down those clips. Do not bend the board because you will damage it. So that's done. Now I'm just going to give the rest of the board itself a little wipe down. And there we go. So now we're ready for this to go back into here. This might take a little bit of wiggling, but it will go in. And we can start reinstalling components. So as we're reinstalling them, just going to give them a wipe down. Just get rid of any excess dust. And then just pop everything back into its place. So that goes in there. Pop the lead back in there. And all we're doing at this point is just popping everything in, but in reverse. So hard drive first, disk drive second, and I forgot to wipe that down. There we go. The disk drive we need to leave dangling like that for a minute. And we're going to move this out of the way. And we're just going to give the power supply and fan a little clean. And the fan is going to be the main thing that we want to focus on here. Give that a little blowout. And then we're going to get the toothbrush and we're just going to press down and try and clean out this fan as much as we possibly can. Okay, flip it around, and that looked good. Okay, so now we're going to replace the fan. And we need to get this into perfect position. There we go. We might need to fiddle with the power connector in a minute, just to get it right. And let's not forget to install the fan. And then we're going to slip the disk drive over the top and clip it in. That is ready. Now we're going to flip it over. we're just going to start popping a couple of screws in just to make sure that everything's held in place so we can put the case back together. So I'm going to start with the hard drive. So we're going to hold the hard drive in place. And we're going to swap to our Torx bit again. And just pop a couple of screws in, one on each corner. Like so. Okay. Let's pop a screw in there. Good. And then let's pop the 4 screws into the heatsink bracket. So there's one. There's 2. There's 3. And there's 4. There we go. So now that we have the main things in place which can fall out, we're going to need to do a little bit of fiddling around with the power supply just to get it into position. So we're just going to line up the screw. And we're going to screw this in and it should pull itself into place. We're not going to screw it all the way, we're going to take the other screw. This one's going to be one of the easier ones to do, but you might need to fiddle around with yours a little bit. And you'll see that the little guide is pulling itself through. And now that should be lined up perfectly. There we go. Right, now we can put the top back on. So let's pop that disk drive in. Let's take the top cover. Slide that into place. And then, if you remember, we have one flat top, which is the one with the fatter thread. That goes into there. And then we have one normal Torx T9 screw, or T10 screw. I think the T10 fits this as well. I'll just use the T9 because it fits every screw. And if the bigger screws slip too much, I'll swap to the T10. But that goes into that one. And then we can flip it back round. Pop on this front panel. Like so. And then we're going to take the 3 gold screws and just pop these in. There we go. Wi-Fi card is next, and for this one we've got the one small black screw, and we've got the two longer silver screws. And sometimes the black one won't line up properly, so just unscrew them very slightly just to loosen it off, and then just screw that one in. There we go. And then we can tighten those silver ones back up. Good. Next we're ready for this case, so we'll flip this around and we just need to get this ribbon back in. And just close that off. And then we can pop this back into the bottom. There we go. Let's take these long chassis screws now. We'll start with the middle. And it does appear that there is actually one missing from just here, which I haven't got any Xbox One X screws. There's one missing from here. I haven't got any Xbox One X screws, so unfortunately there is nothing I'm going to be able to do for that customer about that. It's not going to hurt the console at all, so I'm just going to leave it as it is. We usually would put 6 of those chassis screws back in. Okay. So there's the hard drive back in. Okay, one final screw. And if we've done everything correctly, there shouldn't be any screws left over, apart from the 2 black ones and the 2 which go onto that connector there. Okay, so I'm just going to finish screwing in the power supply. And for this I'll switch to a TR10 because they never screw in properly. So I'll switch to the TR10. It's a bigger screw. Just make sure that it goes in tightly. There we go. And that is ready for the top. So to put the top back on, we're just going to take the one side and we're going to drop it on an angle, and then just slide it back. And then finally we've got 2 last screws. That's the black case screws, the one there, and finally one just there. and that is done. So this video right now, as I'm looking at it, has been running for 43 minutes and 40 seconds. If I wasn't doing a video, this would take me about 20 minutes, but because I'm talking through it, it obviously takes a bit longer. So one final thing to do before we call this done is obviously just to pop in a power lead, press that power button, make sure the sync button is working, which is going to take a second. So this drive button works, and the sync button works as well. Console switch is on, and this console is now clean. Okay, that's going to be it for this video, guys. That is how you properly clean out your Xbox One X console safely. Thanks very much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer them as much as I can. As always, give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, if you want to see more videos like this, and please hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel a lot. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now.